is VAT stamp? VAT stamp is the combination of VAT and stamp duty on businesses and property transactions and other documents required to be stamped. The amount payable is calculated based on the market value of the property or transaction value or flat amount outlined in the law, and is collected by the VAT stamp unit of the Department of Inland Revenue. A stamp is affixed by the department to the documents upon submission after payment of any VAT or stamp duty due on the transaction. Follow our social media pages or visit our website for more information on VAT stamp.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to our short Facebook Live session on VAT stamp and the VAT stamp amnesty. My name is John Williams, manager here at Inland Revenue for Communications. I'm joined by our VAT stamp manager, Ms. Latoya Albury, our assistant, Ms. Annalisa Johnson, and a host of other Inland Revenue employees. I think Mr. Dexter Fernandez is also on, who is our operations manager, who will also be able to chime in and answer any questions that arise from you guys here today. So we just wanted to welcome you to our session. A few housekeeping notes. Please be reminded to keep yourselves muted. Also, if you have any questions as we are going on before the Q&A session, we ask that you put those questions in the comment section, whether you're here on Zoom or you are watching us on Facebook or YouTube. Please drop your questions. If they are able to be answered as you ask them, we will in the comment section. And if they're not answered, we will answer them live. We will also have the option during the Q&A session for you guys to ask them live. So we'll just kindly unmute, or you can raise your hand and we will unmute you and allow you to ask your question about VAT stamp or the VAT stamp amnesty. Now today, that is specifically what we're talking about. So please, if you have any additional questions about the Department of Inland Revenue, feel free to drop them in the comment section along with your email, and we will find a way to answer you today or before the end of the week. All right, thank you. So we're going to go straight into our speaker, who is, again, as I said, the manager of the VAT stamp unit, Ms. Latoya Albury, who will have a brief presentation along with her assistant, Ms. Johnson, and then we will watch a video after that on the application process, and then we will open the floor for questions and answers. Ms. Albury? I see Ms. Aubrey still has some jitters there. Maybe not be ready. Ms. Aubrey, are you ready for us? While we're waiting on Ms. Aubrey to get started, we want to remind you guys that the VAT amnesty ends November 30th, 11:59 on November 30th. So we want you guys to definitely take advantage of that. And I promise you that Ms. Aubrey and Ms. Johnson will definitely have a full explanation of exactly what VAT stamp is and why it makes sense for you to take advantage of the amnesty. How are we guys looking? Are we ready to begin with our presentation? Okay, I see I received a note here saying that we have some technical difficulties with Mrs. Albury's computer. I think that's what this says. So kindly bear with us a few moments as we get her set up so she's able to make this presentation. While we're waiting, if you have any additional questions about the Department of Inland Revenue, please feel free to drop them in the comment section along with your email or a contact, and we'll be sure to answer those questions for you. Even if it's waiting cases, reg cases, TCC cases, renewals, first-time applications for business licenses, real property tax issues, please feel free to drop them in during this session.
Who pays VAT stamp? The parties to any business or property transaction or other documents being stamped. This includes any entity or individual transferring or receiving ownership of real estate, personal property, or a business via purchase, gift, or inheritance. It also includes the parties to a mortgage, lease, transaction for the incorporation or increase in capital of a company, and certain banking transactions. Follow our social media pages or visit our website for more information on VAT stamp. Hey there! The Department of Inland Revenue is excited to announce that VAT stamp is going digital July 1st, 2024. So that means less back and forth to the department. In this new portal, you'll be able to submit all documents, track your progress, and pay all taxes without visiting our office. Follow our social media pages or visit our website for more information on VAT stamp.
Okay, guys, we just asked that you bear with us another 2 minutes. Our internet at the office just dipped, so they're coming back online right now. While we wait, we just want to let you know if you have any family or friends in the island of Eleuthera, we are on Rock Sound specifically. The Department of Inland Revenue is having a town hall meeting in Eleuthera at the Preston Albury High School at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. today. So everything that the department does, VAT, business license, real property tax, tax compliance, VAT stamp, all of the works can be discussed there. If you know any friends or family in Eleuthera, specifically Rock Sound, please encourage them to go to attend so that they can have all of their questions answered or receive firsthand experience and assistance with any matter that they have with our department. So again, Ms. Albury should be coming back up shortly. I see that the internet is kicking back in, so please bear with us. As we know, in this age, anything technical can go wrong and will go wrong. So we thank you for being patient, and we should be on our way shortly. All right, I see Ms. Albury is back. Ms. Albury, are we good? Now we ready to go?
Yes, good morning, John.
Thank you so much. So once again, I want to introduce you guys to Ms. Latoya Albury, who is our VAT stamp manager. She is going to give you guys a presentation on exactly what VAT stamp is, and she will also speak with regards to the VAT amnesty that ends November 30th. Her assistant, Ms. Annalisa Johnston, will also be participating in the presentation. So we ask that you guys please give them your full attention. Again, some housekeeping. If you have any questions while they're speaking, please drop it in the chat, and we will have those answered either live or in the chat directly. If you have any other questions about the department, please, this format is specifically for VAT stamp. So you feel free to drop those questions in the comment section along with your email or a contact, and we will be sure to get those questions or have any issues that you have solved. So I turn it over now to Ms. Albury, who's ready with a presentation on VAT stamp. Albury.
Good morning, everyone. We're sorry for the delay, but we're going to move right along into what is VAT stamp. So VAT stamp is a combination of VAT and stamp duty on business and property transactions, and other documents required to be stamped. The amount payable is calculated based on the market value of the property or the transaction value or a flat amount outlined in the law. So the VAT stamp unit is responsible basically for collecting VAT and stamp duty payable on real estate and business transactions and other documents that must be stamped. So a stamp will be affixed by the Department of Inland Revenue to the document upon submission after payment of any VAT or stamp duty due on the transaction. So the question is, who pays VAT stamp? So VAT stamp is paid by the parties or any business or property transaction. This includes any entity or an individual transferring or receiving ownership of real estate, personal property, or a business via purchase, gift, or inheritance. This also includes the parties to a mortgage, lease, transaction, for incorporation or increase in capital of a company, and certain banking transactions. So, what do you want to know about VAT and the main documents for VAT stamp? So I'm going to turn it over to my assistant, Ms. Annalisa Johnson, and she will give you and she will let you know the main documents that are submitted for VAT stamp.
Good morning. The main documents submitted for VAT stamp include the following: conveyances, which are the sale of properties between individuals or companies; mortgages, for when persons purchase homes from the banks; satisfactions, which relates to when mortgages are paid by the bank. There's a document that is provided that needs to be stamped. And the last item is affidavits, which just confirms citizenship. Conveyances, so we'll discuss conveyances to Bahamian person or holding companies. Every deed of conveyance, assignment, or transfer of real property to a Bahamian individual or a Bahamian company that is used solely by the owner of the holding real property and does not conduct business. The applicable VAT rates include 2.5% where the value does not exceed 100,000, 4% where the value exceeds 100,000 but does not exceed 300,000, 6% where the value exceeds 300,000 but does not exceed 500,000. Now there's a difference in the rate as it relates to conveyances to Bahamian entities. Every deed of conveyance, assignment, or transfer of real property to a Bahamian company or Bahamian entity. The applicable VAT rate is 2.5% where the value does not exceed 100,000 and 10% where the value exceeds 100,000. Conveyances to foreign persons. Every deed of conveyance, assignment, or transfer of real property to a foreign person. Every deed of conveyance, assignment, or transfer of real property to a foreign company. The applicable rate in both cases is 10% across the board. VAT stamp flat rates of 1% applies to the following categories: mortgages, further charges, upstamping, debentures, and notice of charges. The stamping process. If the document relates to real property, request a tax statement and pay all outstanding real property tax on the property. If a real property tax assessment number has not been assigned to the property, a real property tax declaration must be submitted to the Department of Inland Revenue. Submit the documents to be stamped. All supporting documents and full payment of VAT and/or stamp duty if the transaction is taxable to the stamping unit at the Department of Inland Revenue for processing. Third, the Department of Inland Revenue will review the documents and determine if any additional amount is payable or confirm if the transaction is exempt from tax before stamping the documents. Fourth, once stamped, you can collect your documents from the Department of Inland Revenue within 3 business days. Registrants can submit documents for recording at the Registrar General's office.
Today, you will learn how to submit an application on the new VAT stamp portal. Start by visiting public.gov.bs. On the home page, click VAT stamp. Here, you will create an account, then use those credentials to log in. Once logged in, click New VAT and Stamp Duty Submission Form. Now select the document type. Then, select the additional criteria that are relevant to the document. Next, select whether the document is related to real property. Then, enter the assessment number. Insert additional information in the text box if necessary. Under the Value Amount section, insert the consideration value shown on the back of the document. Then, insert the real property tax value. Insert the appraised value in the appraised value box if necessary. Under the Property Information section, insert the property description and select the appropriate island. Under the Transferor section, select the transfer type that applies to the document, and then provide the necessary transferor's information. Insert the attorney's information if necessary. To add additional transfers, click the Add Another Transferor button. Next, enter the transferee's information under the Transferee section. If there is an additional transferee, add them by clicking the Add Another Transferee button. Please note that if the representative is different from the submitter, click here and insert the representative's information. As a final check, review the form to ensure there are no mistakes, and click Add Attachment to add any relevant documents. In order to submit, all documents must be a PDF file. Finally, click Submit or Save as Draft until you are ready to submit. For more information about VAT Stamp, visit the VAT Stamp page on our website, inlandrevenue.finance.gov.bs.
All right. Thank you very much for that video. Right before we get into Q&A, we're going to have Ms. Aubrey come back, who's going to talk to us specifically about the VAT amnesty. And I know a lot of persons need to take advantage of. So, Ms. Aubrey, floor is yours again.
Thank you once again, John. All right, so I want to talk about the VAT stamp amnesty. The amnesty was introduced as of the 29th of May, where the government is allowing all conveyances to be stamped at the transaction value, but they will be charged a late penalty. And let me just break that down simply for persons to understand. So if you would have purchased a piece of property, say back in 2020 or 2018 or 2010, however old, and for some reason your attorney or when your Grammy gave you that property or your daddy gave you that property and you just put that document somewhere and you just forgot to stamp that document and you say, hey, hold on, I have this document and this is an old document, but I didn't pay the stamp duties on it. So the government is now allowing you to bring that document in to have it stamped at that then purchase value or the consideration value, but you will pay the late stamping fees of 10%. So the amnesty started on the 29th of May, 2024, and it ends on the 30th of November, which is in a few days at 12 midnight. So I urge all of you, if you have some old conveyances that you realize that your attorney did not stamp, or you were given a piece of property and you realized that you didn't have it stamped, to please submit your applications through the portal. And again, like I said, the deadline is on the 30th of November. Have your documents submitted for stamping, and we will stamp it at the consideration value and not the assessed value. Now, I know I had some persons called in this week and they said, Ms. Aubrey, I have a conveyance and it was done in 2024. No, those documents are not considered under the amnesty. Only previous documents that were executed 2023 go way back. And if it goes back to 1970 or 2024, those are the documents that will qualify under the amnesty period. So once again, the amnesty ends on the 30th of November this year, 2024 at 12 midnight. So we ask that you have all of your documents submitted through our portal to be stamped. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Aubrey, Ms. Johnson, for your presentation and explanation of what VAT stamp is and the VAT stamp amnesty. So we're going to now open the floor for questions for our Q&A. And I just want to start off with a question that is just dropped in the chat here at Zoom. And Ms. Aubrey, Ms. Johnson, feel free to answer these questions. Has the applicable law changed on the amount of VAT/stamp duty paid with respect to properties gifted to children from parents and between spouses?
Okay, so it is still in effect that we consider those documents as inter vivos or inter vivos, as however the attorneys want to interpret that. So with the transaction on those documents, they are still in effect where spouses can give to each other or parents can give to their children, and it is done at a VAT zero rate.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Another question we have here that's coming in from Facebook. If your property is being used as collateral, does that mean your property is already registered? If not, how do you go about getting it done?
So if you're using your property as a collateral to, I guess, get funds from the bank, then yes, the bank should do their due diligence to make sure that if they are going to secure that property for a loan, they should do their due diligence to make sure that the property is registered and that real property taxes are paid on that property.
Okay, and we have a question coming in from Mr. Gibson. We have two questions actually. What if the real property taxes are not current or there's no tax certificate? And what if the taxes are outstanding or the property has not been assessed for taxes?
All right, so the Department of Inland Revenue, as of July 1st of last year, made a policy decision that anyone who is presenting a document for stamping must have an assessment number affixed on the document. Now, we know sometimes we get into these catch-22 situations, but the policy decision of the department is that if you are presenting a document for stamping, it must have an assessment number. And so we are trying to collect revenue both ways, real property tax and stamp duty. So we ask that the real property taxes are paid up to date before we can actually go ahead and stamp the document. Now we know that some documents will not have an assessment number, and they're just getting into the real property tax database. So we kind of work with real property tax hand in hand to accommodate persons when submitting their application for stamping, so it does not drag out the process. So we work in-house to try to deal with those matters that Mr. Gibson spoke about.
Okay, thank you. We have another question coming in from Facebook. What is the probability that I submit my documents today and the deadline ends November 30th that I can catch the amnesty period? All
right, so if you submit it today, you are in for the amnesty. So your document will be processed under the amnesty. Now, it means that you may not get the approval back before the 30th of November, but if the application was submitted through the portal before the 30th of November, you will be entitled to amnesty.
Okay, so just for clarification, you're saying that once it's submitted before or at 11:59,
Correct.
no matter if it's returned before the 30th, you will receive the amnesty.
Correct.
Good. All right, so we have a question from Neely. Fairdawn Neely, is there a possibility of the amnesty period being extended?
Well, we had that question asked for this whole week. That is a good question, and I am waiting on Mrs. Strawn to give me the okay from FS. So we're just waiting on some clarification on that. But as we know, it ends on the 30th, but we are hoping that it will be extended beyond that period, because we see that we're getting a good feedback from the amnesty.
Yes, thank you very much. We have a question from Kendira Turnquist. I think I pronounced it correctly. In an instance where a conveyance dated in 1998 was not stamped and it involves a transfer from a parent to a child, do we need to apply for an inter vivos transfer for it to be zero rated prior to submitting it for stamping?
All right, so she said that the document was done in 1998. Okay, so I don't think that inter vivos was in effect at that time. And so unfortunately, she does not fall within that category. So she will have to pay the stamp duties on the document. So we will have to get an assessment value for that document, for that property, and we will assess her on that, and we will charge her based on that. So she will have to fall within the amnesty submission, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. If you'd like to ask your question live, please feel free to simply just raise your hand in the chat, and we will identify you and allow you to unmute, or we will unmute you directly so that you may ask your question. We have our experts on the line, so folks, please feel free to ask any question related to VAT stamp and the VAT stamp amnesty that we want you guys so badly to take advantage of. And monitoring Facebook as well. These guys seem to be satisfied with all the information that was provided today so far. So Aubrey, while we wait, is there, what has been the response with regards to the VAT stamp amnesty?
Oh, we've been getting a good response from that. We've seen persons submitting documents, and even though some of them are, a little distressed, because we have some people that are saying, hold on, I bought this property back in 2020, and you mean to tell me my attorney did not submit my document for stamping? And they purchased a property, say, for about $60,000. And now they have built a big old home on that property, and that value on that home is like 400 and some thousand. And they're like, Ms. Aubrey, I have to pay on 400. I said, no, the government now has an amnesty where if you purchased it for 60,000 and it was vacant land, you are able to now pay the stamp the VAT on the 60,000 and not on your improved value that you have on the home now. So I think too, that is something that we need to clarify with persons a lot with the amnesty, that if you would have purchased a piece of property back then and it cost you only 20,000 or 15,000, and now you have built your lovely home on that property, or maybe a duplex or a triplex, no, we are not going to charge you based on the improved value. We will charge you just based on the value of the property at that time, inclusive of the 10% late fees.
Thank you so much. So we have some more questions coming in. If an arrangement is made to settle the taxes over time and a purchaser needs his or her document to be stamped, will the VAT unit work with that purchaser to register their document?
We would really like to, but documents are stamped once payment is received. So the payment has to be made in full.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question we have here. Conveyances are needed for property to be declared. I think this is what they meant. Therefore, how does that work if the department is asking for an assessment number before stamping?
Okay, so this is a good question because we call this the catch-22 position. So we find that a lot of persons are in this category where they would have purchased a piece of property or they have a piece of property and it is not registered as yet. And, for some reason they say, oh, the department is taking a little, long to giving them their assessment number. So what we try to do is we try to work with them and say, okay, the person that you would have purchased the property from should have had an assessment number. So we're asking you to just get that assessment number of the previous owner, and we'll use the previous owner's assessment number and we'll have you affix it on the document, and we will be able to process the document from them. And then once you would have already stamped the document, paid for it, and you will just go back to real property tax and say, hey, listen, I already got my document stamped. This property belongs to me right now. Come, y'all change this and put this in my name. So that is how we would work with in situations like that.
Okay, another question from, I think it would be Miss Wright on Facebook. Is VAT payable on property purchased in the Family Island?
VAT is payable on all transactions, all, whether it's here in Nassau, Kidd Island, Eleuthera, Abaco, Freeport, San Salvador, on all transactions.
Okay, another question from Ms. Turnquest. Has the portal been updated to allow for submission of a deed of exchange under the new VAT Amendment Act 2024, where property is exchanged due to an error by the owners and the property value does not exceed $500,000?
Yes, we have updated the system so the documents can be submitted through the portal for a deed of exchange. And we know that the charge on that is just a flat fee of $2,000. I think it's $2,500 for the deed of exchange. So yes, that document type is up and it is working.
Okay, I have another question. I think that may be with reference to the assessment number before stamping. Ms. Carroll says, how does that work when the assessment number includes a larger tract?
Okay, so we have this situation as well where persons are purchasing properties from a large tract of land. So what we do is, and they just have an assessment number for the whole tract. So what we do is we ask them to go to or submit the declaration through the real property tax portal. So what needs to happen is you need to have a separate assessment number for that piece or that tract of land that you're purchasing. So that it has to be separate and apart from the overall assessment number.
There was a clarification on her. She said, well, how does that work when the assessment number from the previous owner includes a larger tract? That your answer still remains the same?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Folks, we're asking you to drop your questions in the chats, whether you're on Facebook or you're here with us on Zoom, or feel free to raise your hand in Zoom and we will identify you, allow you to ask your question live as we are here. Don't be shy. The floor is yours. Also, if you guys have any other questions regarding the department outside of VAT stamp or the VAT stamp amnesty, please feel free to ask those as well. Or if you may have outstanding cases for business license or anything in the department or your property tax as well, please feel free to drop the information in the chat along with your contact information, email, telephone, so that we can swiftly assist you.
So John, I just want to put a plug here that VAT stamp, you can pay for your documents to be stamped either via credit card or online payment, or when you bring the document in over the counter, we accept checks and wire transfers as well. So there are different ways that you can pay to have your document stamped. So if you would have received your invoice online and you really don't feel like taking a trip down here, You can pay it online, but you will have to come down to have the document stamped. So once you show proof that you would have made your payment for your transaction, you can just bring the proof of payment along with the document, and you get it stamped, and you're in and out in less than 5 minutes. So before we know, we had lines, and it used to take us a long time. So once everything is processed and you have your invoice, and you have proof of payment, or even if you just bring one document with a check, we would process that for you, and you're on your way or out the door. So the process has been short.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ms. Aubrey.
Yes.
Another question that has come in from Ms. Carol. Sorry, from Mr. Daxon. In case where the new owner hasn't declared their property and the previous owner refuses to pay outstanding real property taxes, how does the new owner be assisted in stamping?
All right. So before you sat down with your attorney and you say, this is the property I want, and you have the vendor's attorney, the first things that should be mentioned or brought up is, do you owe real property taxes? Because we all know taxes move with the property. So if you're going to buy a piece of property and you have not reached out to the Department of Inland Revenue to see what taxes are owed on that property, believe me, you will inherit those taxes. So the first thing I tell people to do is to make sure that the taxes that the purchaser has is paid up to date. Once the taxes are paid up to date, you know that you are inheriting a piece of property that does not have any taxes on it. So you have to now do your due diligence, or have your attorney do their due diligence to make sure that there are no taxes on this property that you're about to purchase. So if there are taxes on that property that you are purchasing, if you are in, but there are certain categories. So if you are Bahamian and it's vacant land, we know that Bahamians do not pay taxes on vacant land. So if there are taxes on it, we know that those taxes will be adjusted. But if it's a property where you're purchasing a home or a commercial building or what have you, and there are taxes on it, and you did not find out if those taxes were paid by the previous owner, you inherit those taxes. So we have a situation where we will not stamp your documents until you have already satisfied real property taxes. Once you've satisfied them, then we will stamp the document.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aubrey. So that's just a note to let you know that property tax does not go with the person. It remains with the property. So
yes.
When you're inheriting that property from mommy, daddy, Grammy, and ask them for a tax certificate to ensure that there are no taxes on that property. So
I just want to, oh, sorry, John. Before we go to our next question, I just want to speak on those persons who kind of inherit properties. So we know on the family islands, especially some persons, they would have inherited a property, or even here now. So your daddy gave you a duplex or a triplex, and he gave this to you like 10 years ago. And you didn't say, okay, let me just find out if there are taxes on this, if daddy paid his taxes up to date. But anyway, all I know, my daddy gave me a set of duplexes, and I know they mine. So now you come to the department and say, okay, now I want to get my documents stamped because my daddy gave me this property, and I want this in my name because I want to pass this down to my son. But guess what? When you look, daddy never paid real property taxes. So now your daddy gave you a property that have over $20,000 worth of real property taxes sitting out there. So you thinking now that you get this property and that's it? No. So before you could even have that document transferred into your name, you have to sit with somebody at real property tax or make some arrangements to have that $20,000 paid before you could say, okay, yeah, my daddy gave me this property and I really outrightly own this property.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Definitely a lot of helpful information there. Next question. I note that items would be in the portal under final review, sometimes for a long period of time, and upon a follow-up, the invoice may be generated in the portal. However, an invoice has not been emailed. Are you able to clarify?
Ms. Johnson, you want to speak to that?
In cases like that, we would suggest that firms or clients
I'm
contact
sorry, Ms. Johnson. Can you pause? Yes, Ms.
the
Aubrey, I need you to mute.
myself
Ms.
at
Scott.
Annalisa Johnson at bahamas.gov.bs. And we will work with the programmers in finding a solution and ensuring that you get your invoices. But it's a digital program and things happen. We have challenges from time to time, but once we're made aware of it, we try to correct it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. So on to our next question from Facebook, from Ms. Wright. If I purchased a property in 1998, when there was no requirement to pay VAT, why are persons now being asked to pay VAT?
Well, the reason being now that because of the transfer of documents, and I'm sure back in 1998, it was not VAT, it would have been perhaps maybe stamp duty that was done at the public treasury, if I'm not mistaken, at that time. So everybody who purchased a piece of property way back, whether it's in 1970 or 1980 or 1999, if it was not VAT at that time, it would have been stamp duty. So everybody has to pay stamp duty on something that they're getting. Even we forgot to mention too, if you're getting a vehicle from the banks, when you go to the banks to get a vehicle from the bank, there's a little something in there that the bank put in there that you got to pay the government stamp duty. And a lot of people don't realize that. So you're paying when you get your mortgage, you're paying when you don't satisfy your mortgage, you're paying when you get the money. So at that time, it probably would have been stamp duty. So it was collected at that time. And so if you fail to pay the stamp duty at that time, we're now in 2024, so it is VAT. So you will pay the VAT, but you will, like I said, you will pay it based on the transaction value or the consideration value at that time.
Okay, so next question. What is the department's solution for delays in receiving invoices for submissions on the portal?
You want me to take it? All right, so sometimes some things are outside of our portfolio. It's technology. We can't help it. And it's not our fault. If the application has been processed and the casework is done with the application, we send them out right away. So sometimes the invoices get stuck in the portal somehow. And so, like Annalisa said, if you find that you would have submitted an application and you submitted an application, say from September or October, and it's now November and you have not received your invoice for payment, just kindly give us a call. I mean, everybody knows Ms. Aubrey's number. Ms. Aubrey number is out there. They know Ms. Aubrey number. And so just kind of give us a call or send us an email and say, hey, listen, my application has been in for a while and I noticed it's still sitting somewhere. I have not received my invoice. So can you kindly look at it for me, please? And we'll be happy to just email you a copy of the invoice. So we know it happens, but we try to work with persons to get the invoices out.
So just to backtrack to the question right before that one about the 1998 purchase, it said to clarify the stamp duty was paid. So are we still required to pay VAT?
Well, no. So if your so let me just clarify amnesty. So the amnesty is actually for persons who have not paid stamp duty or VAT on their document. So if you were given a piece of property, or if you have a piece of property and your conveyance was executed back then, and you notice on your document and you've not recorded them at the registrar's general office, and you notice that there is no government red stamp affixed on the top of the document, you will bring that document in for stamping. But if you have submitted your document and you have a stamp that you would have paid your stamp duty, then no, you do not need to bring that document in. That document should have been taken straight to the registrar general's office for recording.
Thank you. Just an observation and note for the persons in our real property tax unit. And they said one observation on the real property tax declaration process, it takes a bit too long, and that must be looked into to expedite commercial transactions. They also stated that it's a great presentation, clear and concise. Thank you very much, sir. On to our next question. I think it's Miss McKay. What is the internal process for having properties assessed in the Family Islands? How are we to track the progress of these assessments and the receipt of the assessment numbers and certificates?
All right, so I know that we have here in Nassau, we have a team, different teams that are, they are dispatched to different islands. So we try here, and this is a real property tax question, but I'm going to try answer it the best that I can. So we try to expedite those Family Island assessments as quickly as possible, because we know that, I mean, you know, the Family Islands, they don't come in as much volume as New Providence assessment. So we do have a team here. We have different officers who are assigned to different islands. So when those assessment or when those declarations come in, I think the turnaround time for them, they should be no less than, I guess, a week or so. So the turnaround time for the Family Islands is a little bit shorter than New Providence. So we do have a team that work on the assessments for the Family Islands.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Aubrey. As we're gearing down to close now, as we wait on any final questions to enter the chats here on Zoom or on Facebook, Ms. Aubrey, I just want you to once again remind the folks of the VAT amnesty, when it ends, and why it actually makes sense for them to take advantage of it.
Yes. So, okay, John. So again, the amnesty started on the 29th of May of this year, and it ends on the 30th of November at 12 midnight. So we ask that all of you go look to see. I know some of y'all have some of those conveyances under your mattress, under the bed, because you didn't want to keep them nowhere. So you have them in your house under the bed, or you have them overhead in the closet. Make sure to look at your document and make sure that your documents have been stamped. If they were not stamped, then you will submit your documents to the department for stamping. And again, like I said, if you would have purchased a piece of property back in 2020 or 2018 or 2019, however long, we will stamp the document at the then consideration value, but we will charge a 10% late fee. So we are asking you to please submit your documents for stamping. If you have not done, if you know that your documents have not been recorded and stamped, submit them through the VAT stamp portal for us so we can process them. So even if you have your document in before or right at the peak of November 30th, we will process it, and you will be processed under the VAT amnesty.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Aubrey. And we also want to remind folks that inland revenue is only we only work these things. The Ministry of Finance are the true decision makers. So with regards to any extensions or even establishing amnesty such as this, that is at the Ministry of Finance level. So we have about 2 more questions here before we officially close. From Ms. Pinder. I understand that in instances where a conveyance transfers several properties, one assessment number is given for all of the lots. However, what happens when one lot is sold and a separate assessment number is required for stamping?
Well, yes, that is the case. So if you have a few properties, back then they would have given you one assessment number. So right now, if you are transferring that property to someone else, you are required to get a separate assessment number for that property. So yes.
Okay, great. We have another one. Are senior citizens exempt from property tax, or is there exemption from property tax after owning the property for 20+ years?
So senior citizens, I know they do get a discount rate on their taxes, but they are not exempt. Now, if they're talking senior citizen now, if Grammy have that house only worth $250,000, of course, you know, she falls within the exemption category. So if Grammy house is $400 and some thousand, then yeah, we know she will have to pay VAT on the, real property tax on the overage. So a lot of those, they would fall in the category of the exemption. And I think we have increased the exemption now to 300,000. So with a lot of those real property tax bills, a lot of them will be exempted. But if they find that they are being charged, they will be charged at a discounted rate. So senior citizens get a discount rate on real property tax.
Yes, senior citizens receive if their real property tax bill is paid in full, which is by March 31st, they receive 50% off of their tax bill. That's in addition to the regular population receiving 10%. So senior citizens, if they pay in full, will receive a total of 60% off of their real property tax bill if paid in full by March 31st. So we'll take our final question, which is from Ms. McKay. What would happen in the instance where a conveyance cannot be stamped and is late because there's no real property tax number? However, the property is awaiting assessment number for over 3 months. Would the late fee be waived?
I know somebody was going to ask this question. So what I do is I refer persons to the chief valuation officer in terms of the late penalties being waived, because we know it's not their fault. We know that the application was submitted for the assessment number. And of course, we know for whatever reason, however, it's a technical or with the system, that it took a long time for the assessment number to be generated. So we try to work with persons and give them a fair, we try to process them fairly. And so I would just redirect persons to, or direct them to the chief valuation officer for them to be, to get the approval for the late fees to be waived. So I'm not in position to make that decision. So we redirect them to Ms. Strong.
Wonderful. So I just want to officially thank Ms. Latoya Albury, our manager for our VAT stamp unit, and Ms. Annalisa Johnson, her assistant in the VAT stamp unit, for a wonderful presentation today. This presentation is and was recorded, so it can be made available to anyone upon request. Please just leave your emails in the chat and we will be more than willing to send it to you. We want to remind folks that we are on all forms of social media. We are on Facebook, on Instagram, we are on X, Twitter. We're also on YouTube, of course, under capital DIR Bahamas. We also have a fully functioning website, inlandrevenue.finance.gov.bs, because we know you guys always say that we don't answer the phones or we don't respond to emails. We wanted to provide every option for you guys to be able to communicate with us so that your questions can be answered and any issues or problems you guys have be solved. So we want to thank everybody for joining us today for this session on VAT stamp and the VAT stamp amnesty. We want to remind you that the amnesty ends November 30th. 11:59 and 59 seconds he will have to take advantage of the VAT stamp amnesty. So folks, remember, once it is submitted before the 30th, you will be eligible to receive the amnesty. We also want to remind folks about their real property tax bills. Those bills you have until March 31st to pay, but you don't have to wait. You can pay them now. We encourage you to do so. We know that we like to be last minute with a lot of things, but we encourage you to pay those bills now so you don't have to worry about it in 2025. So thank you. We appreciate you guys for joining us today, and everybody have a wonderful, blessed day and a beautiful weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, John.